episode 4 of the Deadlifts and Pizza, no BS fitness and nutrition podcast. I'm Jamie.
I'm Laura.
Awesome. And I was just about to tell you, Laura, that I don't even have deodorant on today. It's like 5 p.m. And it's just been one of those days where, like, I don't know where the day went. But happy 4th of July.
I'm glad we're in separate rooms.
I don't think that I smell, though.
No.
I really don't think I do.
Actually, I didn't put on deodorant today either. And yeah, I don't usually smell unless I like sweat on top of sweat. Like if I did something and I sweat and then I go back out and do something again and then like sweat really hard again.
Yeah, no, I there are times where like deodorant doesn't happen by accident and sweat happens and then I notice my smell. Like I'm not immune to the fact that like I know that I do smell sometimes. Today's not one of those days. I smell great. Part of it's because I have like barely moved all day, which kind of sucks. But I've just been a go-getter all day. What can I say? I've been focused.
That's good.
Yes. Happy 4th of July. I know I said that already. But we are I love doing this podcast. I was like so excited to sit down and record this. But then as soon as we're done, I'm going to my brother-in-law's and I'm just gonna like totally relax and I'm really looking forward to it. Have a couple drinks, eat whatever the heck I want. I don't know what food they're gonna have there. I made my grain salad, so I know that I'll have like that fiber and vegetables, produce going on. But it was making me think about just the idea of like holidays and how people like stress out about holidays.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I don't really, like, what are my thoughts about other people stressing or do I stress?
Like, there's people, I mean, you know, people aren't, all the people aren't going to hear this for like 2 or 3 weeks, but the idea that there's a lot of people that stress out, you know, you see posts from other fitness, nutrition people on Instagram all the time, you know, on the 4th of July, Memorial Day, like Christmas, like all the holidays, trying to coach people through like the fact that there's going to be a lot of food around and alcohol and socializing and stuff like that. So what do you normally tell clients around days like this?
Like honestly, like unless you're in a cut right now, so unless you like have you don't want to, go crazy when you're in a cut or something because it can throw you off, but even then sometimes having that little break is fine. You just know that you're going to have to be in your cut a little bit longer. But for the most part, like just do what you want. It's one day. Like one day is it going to mess you up. Just eat what you want. It's not that big of a deal.
It's not. And I almost feel bad because like as a trainer, I used to spend a lot of time thinking about like the upcoming holidays and how I wanted to like prepare content to help people through them. And you know, there's like 3 or 4 of them a year. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, Thanksgiving's coming up. What do I need to tell everyone? And I'm almost kind of tired of it. Like I didn't even think all of a sudden on 4th of July, I was like, oh, that's right. People are probably stressing right now. But yeah, I just think that that's part of like reaching that other side, I guess, of like fitness or nutrition when you finally get to the point where you feel like it truly is just part of your lifestyle. The holidays and things like this, they don't mess you up anymore. Not only do they not mess you up, but you go into it with more like, I remember I used to go into days like this or any kind of like holiday or special function. I would have a little bit of anxiety as well. And that kind of like anxiety would lead to me kind of stuffing my face more than I normally would. And I think you and I were just talking maybe last week or the week before about how there's almost this like lack of desire in recent years to even go past fullness. Like it just doesn't feel good. Yeah. And so I'm not even, you know, I eat a little bit of everything and I stop when I'm full and it doesn't mess me up at all.
Yeah, me too. I don't even, it wouldn't even be on my mind anymore. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
The only thing I would worry about maybe is if like certain foods might make me feel a little more bloated or uncomfortable in the moment. Other than that, like I'm just gonna eat what I want.
Yeah, you know, I do have this general I'm always making sure I get protein in. I'm always making sure I'm looking for a fiber source. Sure, there's days and meals where that doesn't happen. But like if I can control it, like I said today, I'm bringing a big black bean and bulgur grain salad. So I'll definitely have that with whatever meat they're grilling. but I'm more focused on the nutrition that I'm getting in instead of like the calories that I'm going to be intaking. It's
Yeah,
much more
definitely.
about like, let me make sure my nutrition is there to give me what I need to function. And then I'm not really worried about the calories. This has nothing to do with aesthetics, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had steak before this podcast.
Nice. You're not really doing anything, right? You guys are just chilling at home?
No, it's one of those things that I was just talking to Wayne about this, that people don't. So we have an autistic daughter, and it makes it so challenging to do things. Like we don't go to functions anymore, or we like I feel like we don't go out anymore, do anything, and then we're kind of like isolated because anytime we go somewhere with her, if it's somewhere new that she's never been, she has a meltdown and she'll just cry and cry the entire time. So it makes it everybody not
Yeah,
have
it's
fun.
exhausting. And it's
So we can't
exhausting
really
for
bring her.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not fun. And I'm not like a big party person anyway. Big party person. Like I like hanging out with like a couple of people, but I'm very introverted. I don't like going to parties. But still I like to, I don't want to be home all of the time. So something like this, it's just like we don't do anything anymore.
Yeah, because it's easier to not.
Yeah. It's not fun
She's,
to go anywhere.
she's like almost 5, right?
Mhm.
When is she 5?
September.
September. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hear you. That's
Yeah.
challenging. Hopefully, when she gets a little older, it'll be easier. Or,
I hope so.
yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm looking at my background and I'm thinking it's like a game of like, where's Jamie now? Because this is the 4th one, and the past 3 I've been in a different
Yeah.
location each time.
I can't see you very well. You look very
Really?
blurry. So, do I look fine?
You're going in and out a little bit, but I think
Mm.
this application that we use picks up the best of both of our internet connectivities.
Yeah.
That's the hope, at least. I'm currently
Yeah.
sitting on a step stool at a nightstand next to my kid's bed at my mother-in-law's house in El Paso, Texas.
Nice.
Yeah, just in case you were wondering.
It's some people do this in a closet, so you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
My husband
It's
was
good.
saying, like, oh, why don't you just do it out here at the kitchen table? I was like, I cannot have any background noise. Like,
No.
this has to be very professional.
Did you just hear that?
Maybe. What was it?
No, it was a firework.
Oh, barely.
No, okay, good.
Barely.
You were just saying I can't have any background noise.
No background noise. Fireworks going off out the window.
Like who's
Sucks
setting them
for
off
you.
now? It's not even dark yet.
Hey, it's 4th of July. Everything goes on the 4th of July.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I've had kind of an interesting little, I guess, topic. So my 7-year-old niece here in El Paso, I think I told you, was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was super scary. I mean, it was one of those things where she went into, whatever kind of shock. Her whole body was like shutting down, rushed to the hospital, trying to figure out what's going on. Diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. Then there's the like recoil from that, like as the family's trying to figure out what the heck does this mean? What are we supposed to do? How do we adjust our lifestyle? And type 1 diabetes is different than type 2, right? Type 2 is like lifestyle induced. You can have genetic factors that might make somebody more likely to like develop type 2 diabetes, but it can be turned around or improved with lifestyle. Type 1 diabetes is purely genetic, and it's just when your pancreas point blank doesn't make any insulin. So there's not much they can do lifestyle wise to change it. It is what it is, but they definitely have to relearn like a bunch of things in order to keep her and probably the whole family like in a good spot. So essentially, for anybody that doesn't really know, insulin is like the hormone that is released whenever you eat. And it shuttles blood sugar in your blood wherever it needs to go. So it will shuttle it either for storage if you don't need it in the moment, or it will allow you to use it as energy if you're exercising, etc. So insulin's the one that determines that. And if we have carbohydrates or quick digesting carbohydrates like, candy, straight sugar, or bread or white pasta, stuff like that, without any other food, if you're just having that, then you get what's called like a glucose spike, like a blood sugar spike, right? Which is not a big deal. I feel like in this fitness nutrition day and age, people talk about it like it's this big deal. People wearing continuous blood glucose monitors when they don't need it. it's normal to have, spikes. And insulin does its job. It releases, many soldiers to take care of all of the blood sugar. And then, but if you do that continuously as a healthy non-diabetic person, if you continuously just eat quick digesting carbohydrates all the time and your blood sugar is consistently high and your insulin is consistently delivering all of its soldiers all of the time, this can lead to either like insulin resistance or just like shut down, right? So that's not good. That's why we want to balance it anyway. But for my little baby niece, she doesn't have any insulin, so she has to get it delivered by her body. I mean, by like something else on her body. She has this like little pod that sticks to her with like a little needle in it. And her mom is in control of like delivering amounts of insulin. And it's really interesting because I was talking to her yesterday, trying to understand like everything that they're going through and balancing. They've even got something that looks like an alarm clock, like sitting next to their TV, that it's like big and it shows the numbers of her blood sugars at any time. So they can constantly see whether like they're up or down. If they're going down very quickly or up very quickly, it alarms, like a whole house alarm goes off. It's nutty. And it's, I think, still very extremely stressful for them. And it's causing them to really look at obviously like everything she eats, because like my kids were playing with them and somebody found like a pack of donuts and they all wanted to eat. They were those little mini donuts and they all wanted to eat the donuts. And my sister-in-law right away was like, your blood sugar is going to skyrocket if you have those. And like, I don't want to tell you not to have those. Everybody else is going to have one. But, and we started talking about, because obviously from a nutrition background, I'm like, well, what if she has it with a cheese stick? Because if she mixes the quick digesting carbs with fats and with protein, then that's going to slow down, right? The blood sugar response. And maybe she can have less insulin, because insulin's expensive. I think it's like $400 a vial. It's like very expensive. So if you can, I said to my sister-in-law, I was like, the goal is probably to use as little as possible, right? You probably want to dose her like the most average dose of insulin possible, versus in her mind, she's like, oh, my daughter's about to eat donuts. I need to like triple dose her to make sure she has enough insulin to handle. It's like, well, yes, you could do that. Or what if we try pairing it with, fats and proteins? And it was a very interesting conversation, because in that moment, I don't really know what happened. I think she also had orange juice, so her blood sugars ended up spiking and then dipping. But then later, she was hungry, and I was making a yogurt bowl for my kids. So I made a yogurt bowl for everybody else. And I was showing my sister-in-law, like, I think this might be a really good snack for her, because we got yogurt. I make sure to get like a higher fat yogurt, not like a low fat yogurt for my kids. Mm-hmm. For myself, I'm always thinking protein, but for them, protein fat is good. You don't need as much protein. So protein fat yogurt, it's sweet. It's like vanilla flavored, but then we put lots of fruit in there. So fiber, obviously also sugar, but we're slowing it down just by it being fibrous. And then I add on like granola and like Fiber One cereal mixed together on top of that. So I was just talking to her about the effects of like, not obviously she'll have sugar in her system from the yogurt and the fruit, and but she'll also have fat from the yogurt and protein from the yogurt and fiber from the stuff we added on top. And theoretically, this would have a more average glucose response. So she's like, well, I'm really excited about this, because if she likes this, and she's just like at a loss. She's like, I what do I feed my kid? How do I get her to blah, blah, blah. So I made these yogurt bowls and everybody ate them. And then my sister-in-law was so excited. She was pointing to the little alarm clock thing that shows her sugars. She was like, look at her numbers. Look at her numbers. And I was like, I what does it mean? Like, is that good? Is it bad? I don't know what that is. And I did kind of learn, below, they don't want her anywhere below 70, or above 150. And her blood sugar was like 140. So she was like, that's a really normal. And I didn't give her, usually I would have like given her more insulin, being that, because what she does is she looks at the carb amounts on all the food. And she was like, I dose her based on how many carbs she's eating. But because you told me there was fiber and protein and fat, and you told me all this stuff, I dosed her less. I actually dosed her just like what a normal amount for like a meal would be. And so the fact that her blood sugar right now is in this range is like, it's beautiful. It's just like, it's beautiful numbers. I felt so good. I was like, this is funny. Amazing. This is awesome. Yeah, it was really interesting. Kind of having that conversation with her.
They didn't like teach her that?
What's really annoying was hearing that story, because I was asking her that, I was like, because whenever I would give advice, I would say, I'm sure your doctor's told you this, but have you considered, like, because I'm trying to be understanding that I'm just like popping in after not seeing you guys for like a year and trying to give advice. I don't want to be that way. But no, I mean, they didn't really. The only thing her doctor said was, to count the carbs and dose her based on the carbs, and then to try to give like 3 grams of fiber per, I don't know, something. And protein. He was like, protein, protein, protein. And so my sister-in-law goes out and she bought all these protein shakes. She bought all these like protein supplements that she's like, she doesn't like any of them. And I was like, well, okay, that sucks. But, and I hear what you're doing. Like protein's good, but fat actually digests even slower than protein. So fat's probably equally important to include. So I was explaining that to her and she's like, they never mention anything about fat. I'm just trying to throw protein at her. And so I was telling her about that. And then and then she said something about the dietitian. I said, oh, you talked to a dietitian? And she said, yeah. I was like, what did the dietitian say? Because I was saying, I can't really blame the doctor. They're not really trained in nutrition. They're trained in medicine. A nutritionist or a dietitian, like, hi, nice to meet you, I'm your sister-in-law, is probably going to be able to give you more like info on that. And she was like, oh yeah, the dietitian. I was like, oh, you talked to a dietitian? She's like, yeah, but I asked him, like, do you have any tips on like what we can feed her or what to do? And his response was, oh, you'll learn as you go. I was like, that was it?
Well, you'll learn as you go. From who? Like, oh, we'll just figure out.
Probably watching her blood sugar spikes on the thing and constantly panicking that your kid might like die or keel over from like, so anyway, slightly infuriating, but I was trying to focus on the positives of, and then how we have that like macros cheat sheet for our clients, or like the one plate, so I was talking to her about creating one of those for my niece. So it's like, she puts her more in control. So when you're trying to build your meal, you need to pick something that has some fiber, pick something that has fat, pick something that has protein, and here's all your options, and you get to be in control of that. And how it's probably going to benefit their whole family, honestly, because they don't really think that way when they're eating their meals. And so if that can help everybody start thinking that way, because that's kind of what we do naturally.
How old did you say she was?
She's 7.
7? That's what I thought you said. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's tough. Do you notice that when you eat food? Like, I notice that when I don't like foods that are just all like sugar or carbs, it makes me feel really shitty. Like if I eat like ice cream, I'm fine because there's the fat in it and I don't really notice it like bother me. But if I eat something like, I don't know, I don't really eat a lot of things like that. But if I eat like a cinnamon bun or something like that, sometimes my husband will make those for breakfast. It goes like, I'm like, I need something else to eat. I can't just eat this. I have to have some fat or protein with it because otherwise I'll be like, I won't feel good.
Yeah.
Make me feel really crappy.
100%. And I rarely do it. I can't even remember how it feels. But did you ever watch when Jordan Syatt did the 30-day blood sugar spiking thing? He did this YouTube video where he spiked his blood sugar like continuously for 30 days straight and still lost weight.
To but tell one people, of the,
exactly. Like in terms of weight loss or whatever, it means nothing. But it was interesting watching his video because the one clip that I really remember was when he just ate a quarter cup of sugar. Like he had nothing in his body. I think it was his first meal of the day. It was like something like, But I respect you, bro. I don't think I could do some of the stuff that he does.
I could just feel the headache happen. Like thinking about it. Yeah. Yep. I don't. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Interesting. He had the continuous blood glucose monitor just to, it was for the YouTube video, 30 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things he pointed out at the end was how it's kind of ridiculous that so many people are wearing these blood glucose monitors when there's like actual diabetics that need them. And now there's like a shortage because health and fitness is making it a thing. But when he had that quarter cup sugar, he felt okay. And then his blood sugar went through the roof, obviously, but he still felt fine. He was like, oh, I still actually feel fine. I think I remember this correctly. Then like an hour later, he was like, oh my God, like the worst he's ever felt. He's like, this is awful. I feel like trash.
Yeah.
And a lot of people live that way.
I know. And it's like, it gets addicting too. So if you eat that kind of stuff all the time, once you go back down, you like want more of it. You like come up here and then you want more.
Do you think you want, do you think you want more of it because of like something in your mind? Or do you think you want more of it because of that palate change we were talking about last week, I think?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
I don't know. I know that one thing that can cause you to crave sugar is if you eat a lot of sugar, sometimes you have candida overgrowth, which like feeds on that, and it will make you like crave sugar. But in that instance where you're having some and then you want some, I don't know.
Well, that makes sense. When you're in your gut too, are you talking about in your gut?
Mm-hmm.
And Well, I was gonna say, like, you are so much more um eloquent with your scientific terms than I am. I was gonna talk about like the bugs in your belly.
Yeah.
You've got like good ones and bad ones, and the bad ones tend to
Yeah.
feed on sugar. So it's the same basic
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, candida is like basically yeast, and you're supposed to
Hmm.
have some of it, but it can overgrow, and that can cause a lot of issues, and you can get a lot of gut issues. And SIBO also, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which also feeds on sugar. So both of those, yeah.
And so if you're constantly feeding it and it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly growing and it's constantly
Your,
sending those signals, and
your gut gets all unbalanced, and then you have issues. Yeah.
yep, not good.
Yep.
And my sister-in-law was asking, is I got the fiber one. I love those. They're the fiber one. They look like little rat turds or something. But they're actually pretty good. They have like a little bit of a sweetness to them, and I mix them in with my kids' granola on top of their yogurt bowls or whatever. But I was pointing out how much fiber they have. It's like 18 grams of fiber for like 2/3 a cup of these things. We don't usually eat that much of them, but
Yeah.
she's like, will this help them poop? Like, will this help them? I'm like, well, are they constipated? She's like, pretty often. I'm like, yeah, I mean, feeding this regularly will help them. It's not like you're going to eat it and then all of a sudden go poop right away. It's more so
Yeah.
that including, and I told her, like, really, kids should be having like 20 grams of fiber per day. So, and she was like, what? So,
Yeah.
anyway,
I
it
don't
kind of
know.
fueled me to get more of this information out because I feel like a lot of the stuff I was telling her to me is like common knowledge and boring, but
Yeah.
you realize
That's
that
what
it's actually not.
That's one of those things too, because we're like in this realm, and even the people that like even clients, a lot of times they're kind of already have a little bit of knowledge when our clients
Hmm.
usually have some kind of background, but then you go out into like the real world and you notice that people don't know much at all. Like they have
Hmm.
so much misinformation. When I hear
Hmm.
people talk, I don't usually interject or say anything. I usually just keep it to myself, but I'm usually thinking
Mm.
like, no, no, that's not true.
I do interject. I don't keep
Yeah,
things to myself.
you're more that way. I'm more like, unless somebody asks me, like unless someone asks me my advice, I won't give it to you.
But even if you do give your advice at the very end, you would say, this is just my opinion and you don't have to do it.
Yes, exactly. That's how I talk to
Laura's
you all the
famous
time.
for, yeah. And it's gotten better. It used to be so hard to pull an opinion out of you at all. And then when I did, it
Yeah,
was like fronted and ended with like, okay, you really don't have to do this. I'm not telling you what to do, but
yeah.
my advice is XYZ. But seriously, like you do not have to listen to me. Like you can like just delete this. And then now I get the full on like fire, like, well, blah blah
Yeah.
blah, I'm so smart, XYZ, these are all the things, and I feel so inspired when I listen to it. I'm like, heck yeah. And then at the end you're like, but you know, this is just my opinion, so you don't really have to do it. Okay.
I don't like telling people what to do,
Yeah,
you know.
because you're so
And
good and sweet.
I also don't want to be a know-it-all. Like, you're wrong. Like, that's not how that works. Nobody likes that.
But you are a know-it-all, like not in a sassy way. You literally
Yeah.
know it all.
Mm,
That's
I
you
know a
know so
lot.
many things. You know so many things. Laura and I have had a lot
Yeah.
of conversations about how my brain retains pretty much nothing. Like I just can't retain things unless I'm
Yeah.
practicing it all the time. And Laura's brain just seems to retain a lot more things than mine does. I'm hoping my medication helps with that. I think I'm like week 4 into being back on ADHD medication. And there's so many little things that have been like shifting that I didn't even realize that I was like lacking in. Like I
Yeah.
obviously taking it for a specific reason and it's helping with that specific reason, but there's all these other trickle effects. And I'm like, oh shit, that's right. Because I was on medication before in college and I just forgot all these little things. So it's been good. So
Yeah.
let's see. I should go learn
Yeah.
stuff now. See what happens.
Just go study. Go learn some new
Okay.
things, new
I'm not
facts.
going to do that. But I will read some nutrition stuff and see. I usually skim real quick, but I've been
Mm-hmm.
finding myself when I pull something up, I'm actually reading the whole thing, like line for line. Just
Nice.
something I
I
want to
do
do.
skim some things too, but I'm always in a hurry. All right. So in this study, they tested 2 groups of people, and see, I'm very good at explaining this. I'm starting off great. One group they had eat eat, like, I think they supplied the protein. So they had them, I think it was like a protein shake or something, and there was 25 grams, I think, in each serving. So they had one group eat or drink, whatever, consume 25 grams of protein an hour, I think it was, before their workout and an hour after. And then the other group, it was 3 hours before and 3 hours after. But they also equated the amount of protein that they were eating throughout the day. So it was 2 grams per kilogram of body weight that they had all of the participants eat. And what they found at the end of the study, and they were resistance training, obviously, they were doing it before their workout and after the workout. And it was like, what was I going to say? Like, I think they told them what to do for their workouts, right? Did you read that part?
I don't remember. This was one of those times where I definitely skimmed it.
I think they did.
I remember that most things were equated, but the goal was to figure out if there was a difference between like immediate, like protein to versus like 3 hours spread out, in muscle protein synthesis, right? Within, like, compared to the workout.
Yeah, and they found no statistical difference between the two groups. So it didn't really matter when they had the protein, it just matters how much protein. So in other words, I mean, there's been lots of studies on this, and there's mixed, some say this, some say, it does matter, but the ones that say it does matter, they might have not have like had everybody eat that high amount of protein.
Yeah, so whether it's a well done study or not, you can find a study to support any confirmation, like any bias you have, like confirmation bias, right? But the question is, like, who funded it? Is it a well done study? Like, you can leave out so many details that matter a ton, but what I like about the stuff that we look at, make sure to look at the stuff that's well done.
And in there he even says like some of the, like, what's the word I'm
like
thinking
potential
of, but
flaws or weaknesses in the study.
In this study, and it was like the way they tested the body fat instead of using like an MRI. I don't know all those things, like how they do things, but whatever they used, it's not the most accurate. So that was one thing, but it was better than a lot of the other ones because they made sure that they ate the same amount of protein and they were following like a well designed like resistance training program.
Right.
So
you know what that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's usually what I tell. That's usually what I tell my clients all the time, because a lot of people are like obsessed with these like little details of things instead of focusing on like the big picture. And I usually tell them, like, don't really worry about when you're having it, just focus on getting it in, and consistency is always going to be more important than having, the most optimal program. If you follow you could have the most optimal program there is, but if you're only following it 50% of the time, you're not going to get as good results as if you were following a suboptimal program, but you were doing it 80 to 90% of the time. So consistency, finding what works for you, is more important than, all these little details that don't really matter that much.
And they kind of start to matter more if you get to like really elite levels of either like strength training or even like body composition. Maybe you have stage goals in a competition or something.
Yeah.
That's when, if you start tweaking things, you might, but even then,
Small.
the amount of difference that people notice when they tweak meal timing and carb timing and protein dosing and whatever is so minuscule, but they need to optimize every single area in order to maybe show up best in a competition.
But those are people that are already consistent.
Right.
They're just
also, right.
Yeah. So they're just like that would be the other thing. Like once you figure out your consistency, then you can tweak some of these things and see, what works for you and think and what, this helps me build more muscle than this does. An example is me with my workouts. Like I work out first thing in the morning, as soon as I wake up, like 15 minutes maybe after I get out of bed. I just change my clothes. Sometimes I don't even change my clothes because pajamas and workout clothes are pretty much the same thing. So I just get out of bed, go to the bathroom, and then get my pre-workout or whatever, go to the gym, So it takes like 15 minutes. So I don't have time to eat. And I know that's not really the most optimal thing to not eat before you work out. But I know I'm also way more consistent if I work out in the morning. Like I rarely ever miss a workout. If I do, it's because I have a high fever. Because when I have a fever, I'm pretty much useless. Or if I'm on vacation, which I rarely ever go on vacation, or
which I don't do
which
because
I
my
don't do.
daughter makes it hard.
Yes, exactly. Or like every once in a while, and this is rare, it's like I'm not feeling great. Like I feel like I'm doing too much and I need to like pull back a little bit. So I might miss a workout then and like need a little deload or break or whatever. And I might go for a walk that day instead. Those are really the only times. But I know if I worked out later on in the day, I would miss more workouts because I'd be like, well, this is coming up and it's more important than working out right now. Like I would find things that were, more important. Where during that morning time, I know no one's going to interrupt me. This is my time to do this. It's like the time I slotted for this and nothing's going to get in my way of doing it. So it's not the most optimal, but it's better than not doing it.
And like you, I think we're maybe kind of drifting into it would be more quote unquote optimal, I guess, to eat something ahead of time. Or even like you hear a lot of people notice that their strength is higher later in the day after they have had eaten like normal meals. But in your case, it's like, yeah, but what would be the difference really too if you were to, let's say you could be just as consistent with having like an afternoon workout.
Yeah.
What would really be the difference? Like, do you think you would be able to notice it?
No, I'm already
Like there
stronger
would
than
be.
you doing it the way I do it.
So that was unnecessary. Like, okay, what is your deadlift? Like 270?
Yes.
2 freaking 70, 100, 200 freaking 70, 270, 100 pounds. Maybe if you changed everything to be the most optimal ever, it would be like 275.
Yeah, probably. And
Right.
and the other thing is I know that your body gets used to the time you work out too. So I work out in the morning. I've had workouts where I did miss the morning and I ended up doing it later on in the day, and it sucked. I always have bad workouts, even though I had food in my stomach. Even though everything would be like optimal, my workouts always suck. So I'm just used to, like, I think my body knows this is the time I do this. This is the time I lift heavy shit. So we need to prepare for that. And
also,
I think it's
like your mindset going into, like, when you wake up in the morning, your mind kind of knows this is what I do and you can like switch into that. But like if it's later in the day and you've got kid stuff going on and like your husband and things, and there's just
that too.
so many things on your mind,
Yeah.
that can affect it. I'm super mentally affected, like with stuff.
Yeah, there's that too. And I'm just used to working out without like working out fasted. I think my body gets, how you were saying you get used to like the jet lag. I think I'm used to working out without food. My body is like this, this is what we do. So
okay, we'll get strong anyway.
Yeah.
But not gain that much muscle mass because it's not optimal in the morning. And I'm going to be super optimal when I'm trying to gain muscle mass in my thighs because they're going to get so massive.
I can already tell mine are getting bigger. I'm already growing them.
Are you serious? Are you lying?
I can see the difference. I don't know if it's because I've just been eating more food.
So, well, I want to talk about that. Can you do keyword thigh quad thickness in like 2 seconds? Because I want to wrap up this protein dosing thing.
Okay.
But I need to say something. It's not that important.
Okay.
I'm making it way bigger than it is. Anyway, the protein dosing study that you just referenced, I was drawn to it when I saw the title because the title is Protein Timing Not That Important If You've Got Enough. And when I read that title, I instantly thought of our client. I won't say her name, but she recently reached out to both of us asking about, it was a very interesting situation. She just started Ozempic for weight loss, which we totally support. But she has days when she takes the medicine, like each week, I think she gets a dose. When she first gets it, she's not super hungry, so her calories are naturally very low. And then as the week progresses, by the end of the week, she has kind of normal hunger levels. So her question was, if I literally can't get in, and she's got I think it was like 120 or 130 grams of protein. It's not like a, astronomically high. It's something pretty average. But she's like, if I can't get in those protein grams, can I almost like backload? Was her question. Can I get less on these days and more on the other days? Should I do that? I think was her question.
Yeah.
Like, should I do that? And what did you respond?
Well, it's better than, it's always better to spread it out, throughout the day or throughout the week, I mean, but if that's
Mm-hmm.
the way you have to do it, then I think, yeah. There's no draw. There's like no negative to getting, because she wanted to eat like 200 grams of protein on those other days, and there's
Right.
really no negative to eating too much protein. The only negative would be if, because you were eating so much, you weren't getting enough of other things. That would really be
Mm-hmm.
the only negative of that. So, yeah, try it. What's the worst that's going to
Right.
happen?
And I think her thought process is too. Thought process was because we always talk about kind of how calories you really have to look at it on a weekly basis if we're talking about aesthetics and blah blah blah. Your
Yeah.
body doesn't really read caloric intake day by day. It's more like the average over a week. So if you have 1,000 calories one day and 3,000 the next, it's going to average out to 2,000. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
it's a little different with protein. Our bodies
Yeah.
don't. But there's still no, people try to look for these black and white answers. There's still not one. Like, yes, it's the most optimal to spread out your protein intake throughout the day in 3, 4, or 5, doses throughout each 24-hour period. That's like the most optimal. And then obviously, if you get your protein in 1 or 2 large meals, not as optimal. And then if we're doing it, as she says, like backloading at the end of the week, even less optimal. But again, the differences between, those optimal ranges, are we going to notice it? As long as you're getting total protein, you're not going to notice it.
No, probably
Maybe if
not.
you're like elite level of something or other, you might want to tweak
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, so I have a question.
Yeah.
How are we going to measure our quads?
I
Because
don't know.
in the WhatsApp group, somebody was like saying like, well, if it's just about thickness, like then just start eating. I
Yeah,
was
just
like,
get
that's a very good
fat.
point. Right. Which
I
I
don't
can do.
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know
Like
either.
we could
I wonder if
fi-
Google would have an answer.
like have a formula where it's like they're this big, but then use calipers to see, what that
You know
measurement
what?
is.
So maybe it could be something, I don't know what this would look like yet, but something along the lines of there really is only a certain amount of muscle mass that you can gain in like a certain period. So
Mhm.
maybe we could like find the formula and the numbers to kind of figure out. So if like in a month I've gained like 2 inches around my thighs, like that's obviously going to be not all muscle. So how maybe we can extrapolate a little bit mathematically.
I don't know.
I'm
I really don't
serious
think
about this.
you're really serious about it, and I've just been like
Yes.
playing, because I don't think, like, it's there's no fair way to do this. I've just been like, I don't know.
Should
I
we
don't
do
really think.
visual representation and voting? Public voting?
No.
A weekly photo, flexed and unflexed of each quad side by
Can you
side.
can you picture me doing that? That's not happening.
Your face doesn't have to be in it. Knee to hip, flexed and unflexed. Public voting weekly. Whose is bigger? No? Are we doing pull-ups too, or are we just doing quad thickness?
We could do pull-ups. Let's do pull-ups.
How many
And
can you do right now?
not very many.
You
I've
keep
been
saying that. I'm looking for a number.
like 4.
4.
Yeah, 4, which is not which is really low for me. I mean, not for me, but I mean, I've done like
Considering what else you
7.
can do.
Yeah, the most I've ever done is 7.
Okay,
Although when I did 7, I probably cheated. I probably didn't go like drop all the way down. Probably didn't do it in a full range of motion. I probably cheated.
We got some
It's probably
things to
more like
discuss.
5 or 6.
All right.
Yeah. I know I can do at least 5.
Yeah, like does a little kip count? A little frog
I
leg
try not to do that. I think if I was doing that, I could get a couple more. Yeah.
So
I got a little.
strict.
I have little mini ones. I have little mini ones, but I don't
It would be
really
cool.
push myself up there.
It'd be cool if it was like cool as in really frustrating because it makes you do less, but like straight, strict, hollow body hold, tight,
Oof.
pull-ups all the way to the upper chest. None of this like, oh, my chin touched the bar. Like all the way. Like I'm on my way to doing a muscle up. Like what's that girl's name we listened to? Was it you that messaged me? No, it was somebody else. Jordan Syed on one of his podcasts, he had this woman on as a guest. I don't remember her name, but he was like, something about like stronger at pull-ups and muscle ups or strongest woman. I don't know. Something about the title. I was like, oh, I want to listen to this chick. She's very unassuming. Like she's lean and you can see she has muscle, but her strength is extremely unassuming. She can do, it looks like the video slowed down. If you look at her Instagram, she pulls all the way up to her chest. Oh, wait, does she do it? Oh yeah, overhand, like a pull-up. She pulls all the way to her chest, and then she very slowly rotates her body and does a complete muscle up. And it looks like she's slowing it down. And I think that like people that are not like really into maybe strength training or fitness might look at that and think it does like, okay, like maybe I could do that. No.
Yeah.
You definitely can't. And even if you got really fit, you would not be able to. Like that is unreal. I'll have to send you her link. I can't remember any of the details right now.
Most
but it
of
was
the
Jordan Syatt mini podcast.
Most people that are good at pull-ups are leaner, like because you're lifting less weight. That might be why I'm not as good at them. Not that I weigh a lot, but just
I mean, you
I
weigh 0 pounds roughly, so
0 pounds.
Don't give me that. 123, nothing.
Yeah, but I don't know. Not like
I was gonna mention. I have this written down, but it's like disconnected. But I wanted to go back to it. So when we were talking about my niece and her type 1 diabetes and the nutrition stuff that I was talking to my sister-in-law about, because I had gone to the store because we're visiting, right? So I'd gone to the store to get all my provisions. I need my greens, my fruits, my proteins. I need my kids' things. I need the things that are going to make us feel good. Again, regardless of calories, we're still going to eat the chips and the ice cream and the things, but we're going to do like the protein and the fiber first and all that stuff because that's what makes us feel good. And that's what makes me feel good as a mom. So that's what I did. So, the yogurt and all the stuff. And I was trying to show her because I had gotten the Oikos, like high protein yogurt for me and my husband. And I had gotten this other yogurt that was equal in fat and protein and was like honey, flavored or vanilla or whatever for the kids. So I was showing her and it made me think like, this is again, like really good information. So I was trying to show her one, how do you tell a high protein food? Because there's so much labeling now where things are just like protein, high protein. And she's trying to think of more protein, for her kids. So I was trying to show her how to pick out a high protein food very easily from just looking at the nutrition label. So I basically showed her that if you take the protein grams and you add a 0 to the end, it should be, for a kid, it should really be like equal or double or equal or more than the calorie amount. So for the yogurt that was high protein, the Oikos high protein, it was 100 calories for a serving. And the protein was 17 grams. So if you had a 0 to the end of 17, 170, it's way higher than 100. Like we're good. That's like a high protein food. You want at least 10 grams per like 100 calories for it to be considered a relatively high protein food. So I thought that was cool. It's like, that's a very easy way. And then for the fat protein ratio, I showed her like for a kid, like for this yogurt, it was 7 grams of fat, 7 grams of protein. Like for a kid, that's good. I want that. For somebody who's looking to optimize body composition, eat a higher protein diet, whatever, that's probably not a great ratio. We normally don't want them to be equal. So I was showing her how we really want it to be like, if the protein is 7 grams, we want the fat to be half that or less for us. For the kids, it's probably fine. What do you think about that?
That's some good tips there, Jamie.
I know.
I think that's really helpful.
I'm gonna make a carousel for Instagram.
Yeah, I like that.
For the gram.
For the gram.
Yeah, but for me, I was like, I wouldn't want equal protein and fat, and that is what I was telling her too, because she's looking to lose weight herself. No. So I was saying, if you're gonna eat a lot of beef, so if you're gonna buy beef, you're gonna buy like steak. If you see that it has 20 grams of protein, but it also has 20 grams of fat, that's probably not the best choice. Probably want to get something that has 10 grams of fat or less for 20 grams of protein. Yeah,
definitely. I don't pay attention for myself as much, but I never really thought about doing it that way.
Well, because you already know, this is something like I never really think about that either. I just know it intuitively.
Yeah.
That's I'm true.
So you're so smart.
Wise.
You're so wise.
And intelligent. No, but for real, it's very intuitive. That's why you don't think about it. But for a lot of people,
Yeah.
it's not intuitive. They're looking at stuff going, how the heck am I supposed to know what's, high protein? She was asking me, what are high protein options? I'm like, well, what do they already eat? She's like, they eat chicken and fish and beef. And I was like, there sounds like protein's covered. I don't really think you need to worry about it.
Yeah.
If you're eating that all the time. But yeah, just kind of thinking of it in more practical terms, it's not as intuitive for a lot of people. They hear they need to eat more protein and all of a sudden, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Helpful tips.
I like it.
You should. Awesome. You got anything else?
I do, but it's really long. I think I should save it for another one.
Can you give me a keyword?
Instagram influencers and food.
Good keywords. And food what? I can't wait to find out.
Well, sometimes my brain doesn't work and I can't think of words. It's a simple word. Like what is it called when people make you afraid of things?
Fear? Fear mongering?
Fear mongering. There we go. Fear mongering. That's what I want.
Instagram influencers and food fear mongering.
Yes.
All right. Stay tuned for episode 5 of the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast, where we will be discussing Instagram influencers and food fear mongering.
And food fear mongering.
Is it really that long? Do we have to save it?
I mean, isn't that a longer topic to talk about?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
This was a good one.
Yeah, I think so.
If you enjoyed this podcast, if you like us, if you think we're good people and you want to support us, please give us a 5-star review. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Like, subscribe, share with all of your friends. We are brand new baby podcasters and we're trying to get out there in the world. Anything else?
That's it. I was going to say something about my quads, but my quads going to be bigger than yours, but
we don't need to talk about that. We'll open up the public voting sometime in August. So
just take pictures of our quads. But we won't say who's our who, so there's no bias.
Oh, you just made it even better. Okay.
All right.
Peace out.
Bye.